Good evening, everybody. Tonight, it is Tuesday, the 10th of September, and we have finally reached the milestone, episode 150 of So What's Been Happening. An exciting time for us as we kind of launch a little bit of a mental health initiative that we've kicking off with. We had a chat to this young man probably 11 or so episodes ago, to be exact, 139, if I'm precise, near enough too. Jack Davis from sCoolToCry. We had an awesome chat. We had no real agenda other than having a chat about life and his social enterprise initiative, which is an incredible space to be involved in mental health and raising money for mental health charities and institutions. So I look forward to introducing Jack to a couple of our regular boys, Lovey and Cuz. We will bring them up shortly. Cuz, not sure what's happened to your screen, but you've gone black underneath. So feel free to, maybe it's valet in respect of the great James Earl Jones, passed away today, left so many great impressions on so many people over some incredible movies. One importantly was a bit of this moment for me. I am your father. I've always wanted to do that. One of the great moments. Ironically, I've got that as my ringtone for when my dad rings. Lucky enough to have my father with me, and always brings a smile to my face as he rings and that ringtone goes off. So I don't know, does anyone even have ringtones anymore? Everyone seems to set their phone to vibrate and not actually ever have a ringtone, let alone answer the phone. So I urge everyone, pick up the phone tonight or tomorrow morning, ring someone you haven't had a chat to for a while. That's what this is all about. And just say good day and tell them you listened or watched a little podcast called So What's Been Happening. And we chatted about mental health. And we're going to chat about a couple of things tonight. Anxiety being one, feeling flat and potentially leading to depression. Job loss. We've all experienced some sort of loss. It may not be a job, but it's loss in general. Relationship breakups, that's always a tough one. And that may not be an intimate relationship with your life partner or partner. It may be a friendship relationship breakup, so in that space. And the feeling of, and how do we stay positive in this environment? So they're all things we're going to have a little chat about tonight. We'll see how we go and what time this kind of takes, but we'll see where it kind of leads us. But firstly, we're going to bring up Lovey and just see how we're tracking on a Tuesday night. Welcome back, mate.
Oh, yeah, mate. Wasn't that long ago we held 149. So, I mean, you kind of politely raise the bat high in the air, don't you, for a 150? The helmet comes off again, but just a bit more moderated.
Yeah, it became the nervous 90s there for a while, and we kind of got to 100 and then very quickly got to 150. So
smashed through the 150, mate. And also, too, I'm glad it was James Earl Jones that did the Darth Vader voiceover and probably not your good self. Unfortunately, mate, what I heard 2 minutes ago was quite humorous. My favourite movie, just really quick, my favourite James Earl Jones movie, there's a lot of obvious ones, Lion King, Star Wars, all the rest of it, coming to America as King Jaffe Joffa was one of the funniest roles I've ever seen in my entire life. Just the way he delivered that role was brilliant.
Absolutely. Ironically enough, I know my Darth Vader wasn't great, but he actually wasn't the first choice in the Darth Vader.
No.
Which is ironic, how it became so well known after all this time. We're going to play a little tribute to James Earl Jones towards the end of the show. So incredible impact he's had on so many people. All right, tonight we're going to bring up Jack Davis from It's Cool to Cry. And Cuz, you're still not working, mate. So I'm not sure what's going on with you, but we'll bring you up shortly. But in the meantime, we'll bring up Jack Davis. Welcome back, mate.
G'day, Aaron. Thanks for having me back, mate.
It's nice to have you back, mate, on episode 150. It's an ironic one that we meet this milestone in amongst our first kind of kickoff with a mental health chat. So we can't wait to have you on.
Yeah, happy to be here, and a big cricket fan. So yeah, the more cricket analogies, the better. Let's roll with those. Knock up the 150. Well done.
Have you got a famous or a favourite James Earl Jones movie in amongst what you've heard and seen today?
Do you know what? I was just about to reach for my phone to figure out who this was.
Put you on the spot. Not a movies man.
Alan, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't come prepared for that.
Right. It's amazing what happens when we have a curveball thrown in to our guests.
Yeah, so
that will prove that we don't go scripted.
And I promise my answers will get better from here on.
I tell you what, the generation gap in the three between us two and you, then Jack, is it's there. It's clearly there.
Yes. Yeah. The old bastards.
Yeah.
So you might need to get me up to speed, Alan, another time, and we can sort of
we're gonna have a chat about James Earl another time. Plus other.
Give me some homework. What else are we looking at apart from Star Wars?
Lion King.
Aaron? Yes, Lion King.
Mufasa from Lion King.
Mufasa? Yep. Okay, so he's a naughty man, this is James Earl Jones. He's an evil guy. Yeah.
No, Mufasa was the father. He was the father.
I'm thinking Scar. Yes.
All right. Scar. Well, at least you know the movie. That's good.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
You got Conan. So you got Conan the Barbarian. He was the bad dude in Conan the Barbarian.
Yep.
Obviously, all the Star Wars stuff. Coming to America. He was in a few He was in some of those spy movies with Harrison Ford, wasn't he, Aaron, in the early 90s?
He was.
Really good at that sort of stuff as well. Just a lot of. I'm surprised he never won Best Supporting Actor in a lot of stuff he did. So for the Oscars and things like that, it's a shame he never won an individual outright honour, I don't think so, because he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. So, yeah.
At 93, he touched a lot of people. But Field of Dreams, that was another movie he's in. So let's run with that. And this is a bit of a Field of Dreams in amongst our discussion tonight. We're talking positives and negatives. We always try and put a positive spin on the situation and the discussion. But tonight, we're going to hopefully get Cuz back up shortly, because he is a key piece of this puzzle that we discussed and just wanted to talk about mental health. As I mentioned, we're hoping to try and do this once a month. So I'm going to call it as maybe the first Tuesday of a month. We're going to try and get a couple of guests or a guest for at least each show, and we'll circulate it around social media and see who we can get on and invite anyone on that wants to just have a chat about them and their situation. And I think we'll uncover a few little nuggets. And speaking of uncovering a few nuggets, Jack, last time we had a chat, it was a very informal chat about life and what was happening. Maybe you can just give us a quick introduction again about It's Cool to Cry and its kind of main message.
Yeah, so It's Cool to Cry. It's a clothing brand that's making mental health cool. And when I say that, it's not about getting a logo whipped up by a gun graphic designer and slapping it on some trendy clothes. This is about making mental health more approachable. And if we can make it more approachable, we can talk about it. If we talk about it, we get more comfortable. And if we're comfortable with it, we get cool with our mental health. So that's the trajectory of where I want to take this brand. And similarly to when someone they put their Nike or their Adidas or their Puma on when they go to the gym, they're prepared or they're preparing for a physical health challenge. Now, I want to give people that same feeling that when they wear It's Cool to Cry or they've got It's Cool to Cry in their closet, that they're prepared or preparing for a mental health challenge. So this is what I want people to be able to have this feeling when they're wearing it. We can start having conversations in ad hoc, informal ways when someone sees the T-shirt or the hoodie, and whether they're in the line for at the supermarket or at the cafe or at a family lunch or a family dinner, we can have these conversations without drinking, drugs, professional intervention, or a crisis moment. And they become more natural and they become exactly what they are, which is normal. So encouraging people and the proud and mental health advocates that are already buying from It's Cool to Cry. I'm lucky enough to have some people buying this stock already and peddling this message and encouraging those around them to have these conversations and to get through some sticky situations or unhelpful thoughts and unhelpful emotions and get through those better if they weren't going to be talking about them. And then as a nice to do thing, 10% of all sales gets donated to mental health charities. So that gets moved around every quarter, which is cool because I get to deal with, last quarter was the push-up challenge. Earlier in the year, it was a company or a charity called Waves of Wellness, which run therapy sessions on the beach and then take people surfing. So you can see whether it's surfing, whether it's push-ups, or whether it's clothes, we're all trying to achieve the same thing here, which is normalizing mental health. We're just executing it differently, which is cool to be able to talk to different people doing their own unique things in their own unique ways where they've had experience, whether it's through fitness and push-ups, whether it's through therapy and surfing, and they've followed that bouncing ball because they know that works for them. So there's a little bit about it that's Cool to Cry to date.
Aaron, he's jumped off. That's okay. Just a real quick one, Jack. I guess one of the things that, and I've kind of supported a lot of, I don't like the word charity. It's organisations and foundations that really try and drive this sort of message forward. When you say you want to normalise it, do you want to explain a little bit further the concept around that? Because I think the stigma is reducing, which is great, but the mere fact that you're calling it It's Cool to Cry suggests that there's still a way to go. So when you talk about normalising it, how do you perceive that as a concept, and why do you want to normalise mental health?
Yeah, awesome question. And I know why I've picked It's Cool to Cry as the brand name, because crying is the height of vulnerability. To show someone that trust, that you're willing to cry in front of them, is the height, I believe, is the height of vulnerability. So if we can get to that, awesome. But there's so much more in between that and conversations like this, and even further before this, is that we can start to open up about how we're feeling, and that will be part of that will be opening up about some insecurities and vulnerability. So if we can do that, we're going to be able to drop this idea of being perfect and connect with people on a way of imperfection. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've got to learn that there's nothing wrong with that, and having our guard up and pretending that everything's okay. If we can get to a level of conversation about being proud of the imperfections and not having to worry about being judged or have the fear or the shame around not being totally 100% on the ball with our mental health, then this will help all of these conversations flow better. And where I see the changing point, and Alan, I reckon you're right, like the stigma is dropping. Can it drop faster? Yes. Can more people do more heavy lifting? Yes. I think the days of mental health awareness is over, and now we've got to start to think about mental health action, because every man and his dog knows about mental health, but what are we doing about it? So we've got to start putting wheels in motion, start talking about it. Put your hand up, say, hey, Alan, I need a chop out right now. Can I have a quick word with you? it's some funny thoughts bouncing through my head. I can't quite shake them. Do you mind if I just talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes, maybe longer if that's what it takes? So I'm really, really trying to hammer home to people that these conversations are normal and we're not having them because we're not practicing them. And if we're not practicing them, we're never going to get good at them. So let's start practicing. They're going to be awkward. They're going to make you squirm. They're going to be hard. But you two will know. You two will know that after you have them, or after you have a session with therapy, or after you show someone that you're going through a bit, it's a monkey off your back, the weight off your shoulders. You understand the clarity. You understand the relief that it brings, and you understand how much they help, even if they are a pit of discomfort. You know that at the other end of them, it's better. Just like when you go to the gym, it could be your worst workout. It could be your worst run. It could be your worst swim, but you never regret afterwards. This is what I want to try and get people practicing, the mental health conversations and doing mental health activities to better their mental health.
Yep. Well said, mate. Well said. All right. Lovey, I'm intrigued by your little caption. For the first time, I've added it separately, that we can add a little caption now below our name as we come up. So for the audio people that'll be listening to this, your mind is your best tool. Look after it. Really intrigued. Obviously, great line. Hits 100%. Just tell us a little bit about why you added that, and then we're going to move into the conversation of feeling flat and how do we counteract that. So, all right, I'm going to let you talk for a little bit, and then Jack can jump in.
Beautiful. Just really quick. Yeah, look, it's mine. This is my sentence. I have not thieved it off anyone else. So we've already got the little C with a circle around this particular sentence. If anyone else wants to use it, I doubt it. But yeah, your mind is your tool, your best tool. Look after it. So, and I say that because I know I haven't looked after it over periods of time, not continuously and not regularly, but I think at my age, at 48, you start to understand, you get more experience as to, and sometimes you can't stop it, but sometimes you do have those experiences and thoughts where you're in a dark phase, you might not be in a depressed state, but you're in a mindset that you just feel like you're in a hole. You can't get out. Eventually you do get out, whether it's on your own volition or with people around you, and that's all well and good. But something that people don't do often enough, and including myself probably, is learning your lessons from it and understanding what it is that put you there in the first place. And I say a tool because you don't go around using the wrong tool for wrong things, and I've kind of done that over the years. Like, I've just allowed myself every now and again to just wallow instead of using my mind and trying to get myself in a positive frame, whether that's with the assistance of others or not. So you need to look after it a lot more. And by looking after it, just be aware of what it is that doesn't make you feel quite right. Be aware of what it is that's negative. What's a negative feeling about you? We talk about our friends and family, and I'm not afraid to say that, I've burnt many relationships over the last few years, but I felt like I had to, because I'm now in a pretty happy place, because I've got the most genuine people in my life. I've got the people that I really want in my life with me, and I feel happier. Whereas I do think that, you can clog your mind up with too much stuff, and then after a while, that all turns negative. And I just feel like when you don't cleanse yourself often enough and take stock of what it is you want to do and what you want to do with your mind and what makes you feel happy, then it's just harder to get to that place. So that's kind of why I wrote that there. It's just keep an eye on what your own mind's doing, and if you can prevent things, great, but also have a plan. If you do fall into a space that's not great, then fall onto the plans that work. So, yeah. That's it from me for that.
Mate, there's a lot to take out of that. just on that, we've got Cuz back. So speaking of talking about things like anxiety, mate, I was in the massive anxious moment just behind the scenes trying to get Glenn back up because I know he's an important part of what we want to talk about tonight. I also then just realized, just to top it off, that at 8 o'clock I've got a little diabetic dog and she has to have insulin like bang on almost that time. And I realize it's like 1:15. My wife's out. At what time? My God, what's going to go on? So excuse me, I come back a little bit frazzled, but we got there in the end. So just before Jack kind of comes in and has a quick chat, we're going to bring Cuz up and finally say hello to him. Welcome back, Glenn, after the trials and tribulations of anxiety in the backspace trying to get your camera up and going.
To be honest, I was actually quite proud of myself that I didn't abuse the screen, throw the computer out the back window and all that sort of stuff. So it was actually a good test for patience and resilience, and wonderful words from Lovey and also yourself, and obviously Jack too. Look, it's a space that more people are starting to talk about, and for a long time we didn't talk about it. And I think from my own little experiences, especially probably over the most recent times, sort of the last 18 months to 2 years, I initially I'd say unfortunately, but now I say fortunately, I've ticked most of the boxes where I've had a relationship breakup, had a couple of job changes. My mother's had a bit of a health scare, and I've had to change my whole sort of living arrangements, going from a family home, moving back in with my family and sister, but the whole dynamics that come with that, and sort of the pressures that I put on myself in relation to that, and you withdraw into yourself and don't reach out to others who are more than willing to help you. But sometimes there's almost, I wrote down a little writing pad before, here it is here. You almost feel a bit embarrassed about the situation, whether it's a breakup of a relationship or you've lost a job or whatever. But when you actually speak to others in a format like this, or through an organisation like sCoolToCry with Jack, you realise how many people are actually experiencing the same sort of thing and emotions that you are. And I think that's, for me, I put a thing on Facebook, and without giving a free plug to Facebook, a photo of myself in, I think it was about 2021, and a photo of myself in 2024. Now, a lot of my mates will give me some honest feedback, which I appreciate and I laugh at. But the majority of people said to me, you look healthier and happier. Now, considering what, I've been through, I think that's a bit amazing. But I think, you know what? You find a way, and yep. I'll blow up your tyres and Lovey's as well. You blokes have been instrumental in helping me get to a good spot where I am. I'd love to hear what Jack sort of thinks about all that.
Yeah, well, firstly, just to touch on that before Jack jumps in, I think you answered a lot of your own questions there in amongst your feelings and discussions, and we've had countless coffees and conversations and walks in and around while we started this podcast. It was to go for a walk and literally talk about life and how we're feeling during that shit time of COVID. And then we got sick of doing that. We went live on Facebook, which we had no idea what we're doing. Jumped on board and literally had a chat, and I'll never forget that first episode with Ryan Sterling, who played a few tunes for us along the way, and we realised how smashed apart the music industry had been, and such an important part of our life. So fast forward on all this time, and we get a chance to have a chat to Jack, who it's fair to say doesn't call himself an expert in this industry. He's a work in progress like all of us. But the most important part about Jack is, I think Jack for us is a bit of a sounding board, and also gives us a great kind of platform to start to engage these conversations. So it's great timing that when I met Jack, came at a perfect time in my life. And in amongst that, we got to talk to many other people over time, but we've got Lovey on board. We've got you, Glenn. Firstly, just before Jack comments, I really appreciate that you're being so open with us, Cuz, tonight on this conversation, and that's the most important part. And to put yourself out there and say, this is me. A lot of people know your story, but the most important part is for me that there is other people like you, because they might not have ticked all your boxes at your time in your life, but there are other people that have struggled with, might be only one of those elements, and we call them probably the lucky ones, but we are all a work in progress. Sadly, you've taken a bit of a hit around the eyes a couple of times, and it will work for you, mate. It will come positive at some point. And Jack and I touched on that the other day, just in a conversation, that the wheel does turn at some point, and it's a case of, I wanted to start this conversation on that feeling flat, potentially leading to depression. So maybe just Jack can give us some little conversations in his head of how he goes about that conversation of feeling flat, and maybe some just key points of what he does differently to maybe how we think, given that he's got a bit of knowledge in this space. And then I'll be really interested to hear kind of, Lovey and you as well, cuz just kind of what little tools you've developed or heard over time that maybe we can enlighten some other people on. So I just want to touch on that. We by no means claim to be any experts in this degree. We're 4 guys that just are genuine, honest guys that are just tire kickers like everyone else that meet and try and earn an honest living. And we all understand the trials and tribulations of life. So I don't want to claim that we're anyone that we're not. And please, if anyone is really struggling, hopefully you do know what to do and have a chat to someone else first. And maybe that was the moment that you can snap yourself out of that little bad track and trials and tribulation you're having at the moment. So let's bring Jack up and let's have a quick chat about that, and then we'll go to Lovey.
Aaron, I love what you said there about, like, we're just tire kickers and we're not qualified. We're not claiming to be qualified or experts. And, like, you don't have to be an expert to know your story, and you don't have to be an expert to share your story, and you don't have to be an expert to ask for help and have these types of conversations. So if people out there think that they have to be qualified to speak, then maybe think about that a different way, because no one knows your story as well as you do. You can be proud of that. It's a journey. And you mentioned about being a work in progress, and you never win health. You never win mental health. You can be winning and you can progress. And I think when we're talking about being flat, I would label this as being I remember speaking to a therapist a couple of years ago about this, when I'd have these long bouts of depressive thoughts, and it would feel like I was in energy conservation mode or battery saver mode, and I was just trying to get through the day and trying to enjoy parts of it where I could, and just doing the things that I know had served me well in the past, and knowing that those foundations, if I was keeping those up, that would help keep everything up, and it wouldn't let me slip further down into these depressive thoughts, and the bouts weren't going as deep, or the bouts weren't going as longer, or longer, I should say, and just things that keep me happy, and things that are maybe on paper boring, but they're habitual, and over time they compound and make the biggest difference. So boring stuff, it's diet, exercise, sleep, socializing. Most of that's free, and just no silver bullet stuff, no magic pill stuff, just simple stuff. Helps your physical health, helps your mental health, because a lot of that is hand in glove. So for me, I would be rigorous in trying to hit those often. And I remember during these bouts, I would take my time away from alcohol, because I knew that wasn't serving me. And if I was going to drink alcohol, yeah, it'd be great for the 6, 7, 8 hours I was drinking, but for the 2 or 3 days after, maybe even longer, it wasn't serving me. So I was finding things in my life that wasn't serving me, and it could even have been people. I'd take myself away from those people at that time because they weren't serving me. So that was trying to get out of that, from those flat parts, or those really deep depressive bouts. And I know when I was in these because my self-talk changes. And not only was I in this energy conservation mode, but I could hear my internal monologue change from, being like, let's do this, let's do that, compared to, oh, fuck this, oh, fuck that. Those sort of things that I would notice, and no one else can, but that's when we can notice that, well, I notice when my mental health is starting to waver. And if I can pick up on that early enough, I'm like, right, well, why? What's going on here? What's making me depressed or anxious or on edge? Where's this? Where in the foundation is there a crack? Or where in my life is there a trigger? Or where is this coming from? And try and go and find it quickly rather than going down and down and down and letting that negative self-talk keep winning. And I don't mind having a flat day. I don't mind having a flat week or a bad day or a bad week. But if we have a bad day, it doesn't make a bad week. And if we have a bad week, it doesn't make a bad month. And if we have a bad month, it doesn't make a bad year. Because the graph, whilst it might go down for 1 month or down for 1 day, as long as it's tracking up overall, that's what we've got to aim for. We shouldn't be hard on ourselves if we fuck up and have a bad day or a bad week. That's fine. It's going to happen. We can't be 100% on 100% of the time. So I was always very easy on myself when it came to the self-talk and when it came to if I bug it up. About, okay, cool. We've done it. Can't change it. Let's get back on track. Let's go do the simple things. And if we need to pull a lever, which is extra help, which might be talking to family and friends as sounding boards, or getting back into therapy, or picking up the cadence of therapy and going in monthly rather than 6 weekly or fortnightly compared to monthly, what are the things that can help us? What are the things that are helping us that we can go, bang, I need to go and use that tool?
Yeah, great. We're going to bring Lovey up in a second, but just a comment from a good friend, Darren Cummings, who probably told us about the greatest qualification of all, that we don't need to be qualified, just to listen. And I think that's probably one of the most important parts. But such a challenge of listening is actually listening not always to yourself and having those thoughts. Because you talked about, what's the length of time to pull yourself and acknowledge where you're at, and then start to change your environment. Or potentially change your environment. So we'll bring Lovey on and see what he's kind of got to add just on that conversation from his own kind of experiences.
Apologies if you can hear some noise in the background. I'm just, the washing machine's going a million miles an hour. It's one of those louder ones, unfortunately. But at least I'm domesticated. It's fascinating with what Jack mentioned about finding kind of like your balance, I suppose. I don't look for peaks anymore. I did when I was a bit younger, and going back into my mid-30s and all the rest. So I was pretty impatient and thinking, well, when's it going to turn for me? And started blaming other people, other things, and I just didn't. I just didn't sit back and look at my own self, I guess, and try and work out what it is I could probably do better. It was all just, it was everywhere else except myself a bit. Job, relationship, I'm like any other common person that's had some issues, but haven't dealt with them all that well over the time. And now I do. I think I do, because kind of like I said before, I trust a group that I know I can trust.
Yep.
But when you're in the trough, and Jack was talking about taking those steps up, I don't want to go too far up, because like anything else, if you go too high up and you start really getting yourself intensely happy or really excited about things, and you take it a bit far, that drop back down again. If you just can't control it that well. I don't care who you are. I mean, trying to control the down aspect of things, and it does happen. Everyone has their down thing. It's just how well you manage that. And so for me, it's just trying to have a bit of an equilibrium balance. Jack's right. Not every day is going to be great. But it's when you allow more than 2, 3, 4 days and they just go one on top of the other, one on top of the other. Don't allow it. Have a look. Reassess where you're at with things, you know. Just do it. You know, if you've had a bad day, have a think about what it was that you could have done better. Don't worry about anyone else. It's what you can be better at or what you want to do about your life. It doesn't even have to be better. It can be different. You know, the other thing, just don't be hard on yourself. Just don't be hard on yourself. That's the hardest thing I've come to terms with. Like, it's okay to fuck up. You just don't repeat it. I guess.
Yeah, I think it's an easy off the cuff comment to kind of make sometimes. Don't repeat it. You know what? If you did repeat it, it's not the worst thing. I think that whole point of acknowledgement and actually realizing, oh, okay, I did that again. I turned to the drink, or I turned to the punt, or I did something to break that and supposed happy place for me. So I'm just interested in, you mentioned that you said that there were some moments where you thought you didn't handle things as well. I'm just interested to hear from your point of view, what change did you make there that you acknowledge for the future as you grew a bit older and a bit more mature, I guess, that you handled the situation a little bit differently? And it's fair to say you've learned from that experience.
It's knowing your triggers, what triggers you, and then knowing what it is that triggers you, understanding what is it, how are you typically emotive to those triggers, and are they good for you, and are they good for the people around you? Or maybe I need to do something different when I feel like that trigger's coming on. Sometimes you can't get rid of the triggers that do things to you. Sometimes it's just they're ingrained in you, and there's not much you can do about it. But what you can do is just try and see what it is that see how you typically reacted to those sort of things, and do something different about it. You know, like, I walk away from things a lot more than being more combative. I'm less combative about stuff these days, for instance. And, you know, I used to go and just do stuff that would, you know, I'd feel happy about myself for about 2 minutes, but everyone else around me probably felt like shit. And then I still felt like shit 2 minutes later anyway. So I think you got to know what your triggers are, and don't try and remove them. They'll probably remove themselves if your emotions, if you start understanding how you react to those things. And one of the best things, and Darren stole my thunder in the comment, you can actually listen to yourself a lot more than what people do. And one of the things I feel like I do a little bit better now is I do listen a lot more to what people have got to say, because if you want to help someone who's going through the same shit as you are, then you just got to listen. You know, you're not the one that you don't have the answer. No one's got the answer to a lot of this shit. And I think a lot of the time, by listening and then helping people get through their thing, they normally answer it themselves, and it's for themselves. And it's the same with yourself. Just listen to yourself a bit more, and you'll probably find the answers you're actually looking for. But there's no one finite solution to any of this. And I think that's what we're starting to understand. And you just got to look after yourself. And if you look after yourself, then you can look after others. That's kind of what I've learned the last 5-10 years, is making sure you're tip top as best you can, because your fuck will help anyone else if you're not, if you yourself aren't any good.
Yeah, I'll be fair. I heard those words from you, mate. You said them in general in our group kind of conversation a little while ago, and what can you be to someone else if you're not being the best version of yourself? And that's, how can I tell cuz don't be too hard on yourself if I'm doing the same thing, you know? So we can all learn from our own experiences. I'm going to just bring Cuz up for a quick mention on kind of what he's done. This guy's been been smacked around a little bit recently. Cuz, we're going to bring you back and just to have a chat about, what have you kind of acknowledged in your down times? What have you been able to do to kind of break yourself? Probably firstly acknowledge it, and also then what move have you made to try and break up that feeling?
I think, as Lovey said, Jack and yourself have touched on, that's the first thing. You got to acknowledge it. You've got to own it, and then you've got to do something about it. But as Lovey said, you might have a down day, but it's not the end of the world. It's not, oh my God. Like when you think of a situation you get yourself into, you immediately think, oh God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You as Jack spoke about, and I loved the word, the self-talk. We all do the self-talk. And you and I have had many chats, as of you, man, Lovey. You talk yourself into a situation where you almost think, oh God, I can't do anything. But then the words I've found in the last sort of 2 years I'm using a lot, and it resonates with what Lovey said as well, about I used to be a pretty fiery person. So if something happened or something questioned I'd done, I'd attack. Now I try to de-escalate a situation as opposed to escalate a situation. So Lovey spoke about triggers, like knowing, we all know ourselves, as I think Jack touched on before. It's my story. So the other thing I've learned to do for myself is I can't help anybody else until I've helped myself. So made myself a better person. So when someone offers to help you, I now say, sure, ideas, I don't care who it is, because it's such a learning curve for me. Whereas, as Lovey said, and others would relate to this as well, you sort of think, oh, but they're different to me. Their circumstances aren't the same as me. They didn't have a breakdown, or they didn't have this, or they weren't an addict. But it's more, you never look a gift horse in the mouth. Like Darren Cummings' comment about listening. Like, I think if you spoke to my sons now, look, I lost a lot of their faith, and even my partner's faith as well, because I lost trust in myself. And in doing that, you lose a bit of trust in others as well. And I think that's probably what I've struggled with the most, is I got pretty low on myself, and then I thought, jeez, what am I going to do about this? Like, and then I thought, that's it. What am I going to do about this? And then once I started to make little changes, and it's, as we'll all touch on, little steps on the journey, I say I'm amazed, but I shouldn't be amazed on the support that you get from people. Once you say, you know what, today's not a great day. So, and then once you say that, and you see, people see that you want to get the help, it's not easy. Don't get me wrong, but you find a way to get through. And you, I've been and seen a couple of therapists and some counsellors who have been fantastic, who say to you that you're doing well, and you immediately think, and I can relate to what Lovey says, you get to a stage where you think, yeah, I'm back. And then something happens or whatever, and you think, you almost have to check yourself a bit. So I go back to what I said about the triggers, like not getting ahead of ourselves. And I coach footy, so you talk about cliches in life, like that whole cliche, one step at a time. Number one comes first, number two comes second. Don't worry about number one and then go to number 7. Just work on one. I think, as you gave me one of the greatest advices, as of a couple of others, write things down. Whether you record a journal or speak to yourself, how'd I go today? Yeah, I achieved that. Yeah, that didn't work, but I'll come back to it. And if you don't achieve what you want to, don't think it's the end of the world. And I think that's, look, I'm very lucky. As I said, there's always people who've experienced the same sort of thing as me. As I said, it's been very humbling, the support that I've got from some very good friends. And look, my mum and my sister, my mum's 83. And yeah, like I know you only get my mum and dad in life, but geez, I got a bloody good one, I tell you. She's an amazing person. Yeah. Very lucky, very lucky.
Just before Jack jumps on, firstly, Guz, mate, thanks for being so open most importantly. That's what I want to acknowledge. And you are the absolute epitome of a good guy that deserves a break. You will get a break. I'm guaranteeing you that. Sadly, it's just got to come at the right time. And it feels like when you're getting kicked in the guts, you just get one more kick. But mate, you are twice the person that I knew a while ago. And you've done some incredible work on yourself. And most importantly, I don't think you realize the effect you have on other people. We all joke a fair bit about that, but you're right that family is one thing, and we all judge them, and we all don't want to know them at some stages in your life. But one thing you can guarantee is someone in that family, in your family, is always there for you. And I think Darren Cummings summed it up absolutely perfectly before, is that we talked about moments, and we talk about checking in on a mate. And he's just mentioned here, when he's on a call or after the call, sometimes he realizes it was actually him that needed the chat, not a mate. And I think that's absolute gold. So we can take a lot out of that. But I'm going to hand over to Jack for a few comments. We're going pretty deep tonight, and that's really important that we slam open the door. And I'm glad that we're doing that on this chat. And we'll talk about a few more topics in amongst this. But we're going to throw over to Jack for a minute.
I'm actually not sure how much I can add to what you said, Glenn. Like, there was just so much gold in there. I just loved hearing it. Like, it was raw and it was real. Sounds like you've been through a lot, but you just keep rolling with the punches, and you've got a great support network around you. And that's obviously by design. Like, you've gone out and you've found the people that serve you and what you need. And it's not just Aaron, because Aaron can't serve you 100%. So you've had to go and find your sister, your ma, Alan, therapists, to come up with this group of people that can give you what you need in some way, shape, or form. And combining all those people, including what you know and what you're giving yourself, that's the greatest way to give yourself the best chance at getting through tough times, which it sounds like you've done over and over again, mate. So yeah, you should be really, really proud of yourself. Not that you need me to tell you that, but I've been on this call for 48 minutes and just you just get it. It's really impressive the way even everyone's on this call is speaking, just how clued on they are to who they are and what their story is. And you've all said it. It's about acknowledging it. And that's the start. And then you can go, that's the building block. But yeah, Glenn, you said one thing in here about, just putting your hand up, and people are ready to help. People are ready to help once you put your hand up. Because I think, what would we do if someone asked for help? Of course we would give them that help. So let's never forget that that's there for us. That's why we have the family. That's why we have the friends and the Aarons and the Allens and the Glens of the world, because when you need that chop out, you know that you would help them, and then you have to know that they will help you. That's the missing link when we feel like everything's helpless and we can't get help. We've got to remember, what would they do for us? Sorry, what would we do for them? And know that that's exactly what they would do for us, and put the hand up when you need the chat or the chop out. Just exactly what you said, Glenn. Loved it.
No, thanks for your kind words, mate. But it's actually, as I think Lovey touched on, it's actually, you've got to give yourself a pat on the back when you do that, because I think Lovey did touch on it where you said it's good to put your hand up for the help, but then actually accept the help and listen, take the advice on board, and then use it to your best sort of circumstance and tweak it to what your circumstance is. And I think Lovey, probably a good time for him to come in and touch on it, because he's been very good like that. But for me, and sometimes as a friend, and what Darren said as well, sometimes you'll call somebody thinking you're checking in on them, but you're actually doing the checking in on yourself. So it's a quid pro quo sort of situation.
It sure is. It's great to have just not necessarily another perspective, Jack, but just acknowledging some of the points that we're talking about and sort of reinforcing those kind of conversations. But bloody hell, are we a work in progress? That's for sure. At any stage, we're a fragile piece. That's for sure. I sometimes refer to us in my own mind as fine china. You can drop it pretty quickly and it smashes into a million pieces, but bloody hard. It's hard work trying to put it back together when mum knows you've knocked it off the mantle. So it doesn't just come back together. But you only get one shot at this. So that's for sure. We're only here once. Some people disagree with that, but that's a conversation for another day. But we are all a work in progress, and we're going to talk about just a couple of things and we've probably touched on some of the key points of what you do in these types of situations, but things like loss in general, and we'll talk about just quickly, and we won't spend too long on it because I just want to touch on it, but maybe we go a little bit deeper on another episode in relation to this, but just in relation to the conversation regarding job loss. And in this case, Cuz, I'm going to put your hand up again and say, mate, you've been there and done this a few times, and a few times recently. You just can't seem to get the lucky break in respect of sometimes I believe honestly that it's not all you know that, and it's very easy to judge yourself. So how, even in your last environment, you got to the point where you got to the kind of cutoff time of when you're supposed to kick over into being permanent as such, and they just kind of dismissed you with no real honest reason of why, and that's a conversation for another day as well. But what I want to touch on is sometimes it's not you, and most of the time it potentially isn't you. So I just want to kind of know how you're feeling at the moment. Most importantly, you've had another kick in the guts where you thought you were going strong 6 months into a job, and it's all been, the rug's been pulled from under you. What goes through your mind then? And obviously you doubt yourself, but what, how are you feeling at the moment? That's the most important part.
Look, I'm in a pretty good place at the moment, but it's interesting you say that, because when I become a multi-millionaire and own my own company, I won't have a 3 month or 6 month trial period. I get very nervous in jobs around the 6 month and 7 month sort of thing. And I'm going to touch on, and apologies to steal Lovey's thunder, I find my nature at times, and Lovey said about checking himself and sort of, and I also said about de-escalating the situation. I now try to not put myself in situations that bring unwarranted attention to myself. So, and I appreciate your kind words. With the last situation, I know I did nothing that justified the decision that the company made. So that, yes, initially there's that frustration, but I look at how I handled it. Came home, spoke to my mum, spoke to a couple of mates, and the feedback I got straight away from them was, "No, how are you? Okay, it's gone. Next step. Don't forget about it." But I thought I did nothing wrong there. So I spoke to someone recently about it today, and I said, "Look, it is what it is." Is what you touched on. Where I am today as to where I was 6-12 months ago. It frustrated me. Don't get me wrong, I doubted myself. Yep. But then straight away I got 2 phone calls from 2 mates who said, "Oh, what are you doing at the moment?" "That nothing." "Okay, good. We need you to come and do this role Saturday." "Fantastic. Done. No questions asked. Good. We know what you do. Come and do it."
Yeah, look, sometimes some couple of things to acknowledge is they can be personality clashes in amongst an industry where you're not doing, it's not you necessarily. They might have had a bad day. They might actually be regretting the fact that they've actually put you off because it might be causing them some further grief down the line, right? So who knows? You never know what's around the corner, but the most important part to acknowledge in my mind is, and it's easy for me to say this, I haven't been dismissed from a whole heap of jobs, to be perfectly honest, but I understand the method sometimes, what happens as an employer. But I think fair to say things can be handled better along the way.
For sure.
Yeah. And we're going to bring Lovey up because I'm sure he's got something to say in this space.
Thanks, mate. It's been fascinating knowing your employment career, Cars, every now and again. Just it'd be nice if you just got a break. I agree with Aaron. It'd be nice if you were just given a fair income crack at whatever it is you want to do. I think, but for me, I think I would like to know what it is you really want to do, you know. And I think that once you find that out, just go at it. Go at it as hard as you possibly can. You know, I think there's been some things over the years where you've kind of gone, oh, this looks all right, and I might try this for a little while. And and we all do it. Once you find the passion thing you want to do, it might not. I don't think the salary is a concern. I think you've just got to enjoy what you want to do. You know, you're, without being rude, you're in your mid-50s, so we're both on the other side of our life now, and we've just got to work out what it is we want to do that's going to be good for us until we retire. So I guess there's a little bit of that, but I don't know. I've been moved on from jobs over time, and I didn't deal with them that well because, again, and I said it about myself before, I blamed everything else around me as well. I thought, well, that's bullshit, right? This is crap, and who the fuck do they think they are? You know, and I think that, you know, when you get to the point of assessing, okay, they've moved me on. Yes, I'm going to go and take appropriate action regarding that job. But it sounds like you've already jumped on to the next thing, which I like. That's the thing I like and appreciate is knowing who you are and what you're about. It's the how you jump back from it and jump on to the next thing. And if that means that you're just trying to find something again for at least 6 months or whatever, that's okay. You know, you've moved on from it. And I think that's really important is regardless of what happens to you, you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the next. And if you don't, and I don't even mean that in the physical sense, I just metaphorically, just keep trying to push forward. Now things will start working out. And again, find your passion, find your thing you want to do, and just go at that. If that means you've got a temporary job in between or whatever, then cool. But I'm actually really happy that you haven't just wallowed, and because there were a couple of times there where a few years back I was concerned about the fact that you just decided, well, it's all too fucking hard, and I think you did that. So the fact that you're not doing that anymore is a really good sign, and it makes me happy that you act the way that you do now. Yes, you're not as aggressive anymore as what you used to be, and that's all well and good. I'm just happy that you're doing it the right way, and things will happen, things will change as long as you keep putting yourself out there as a good person. The right people will pick you up at some stage. I've got no doubt about that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and we're probably at times similar characters, and that's the thing, and as you said yourself before, like that's probably why I lost a lot of jobs that I did, because if something went wrong, I would blame everybody else apart from the person in the mirror who was probably most of the blame, and that probably can even go in towards some relationships and other stuff as well. But when you sort of look at yourself and think, jeepers, could I have gone about that another way, or what was I thinking doing that? And it's not being harsh on yourself, just attacking it from another sort of angle. And as you said, and obviously living with a mum, as you boys were aware, like obviously mum's a very wise lady and is very protective of me, but she goes, Glenn, don't get ahead of yourself. To your words, Lovey, just one thing at a time. You're going to have probably more disappointments in life than you are great moments. So you just got to deal with them. And as harsh as that might sound, the more you wallow, like the counsellor I'm seeing at the moment, he's fantastic. He says, give yourself, when he catches up, or catch up on a monthly basis now, he goes, don't be afraid to give yourself a mark out of 10, but give yourself an honest mark. And if you don't get 10 out of 10, that's not the end of the world. Just tomorrow's another day.
Yeah, I wouldn't go. The other thing, don't go around talking about blame. on yourself. Don't use that word. That word is just, that's where you start throwing yourself into just shit thoughts. It's something I've learnt myself. Just negative words, try and avoid them. I know that sounds a bit airy fairy, but the fact of the matter is you've got to be as positive as often as you possibly can with yourself for everyone else. That's the only thing I'll say on that.
Yeah, and you touched on that before, and that's early on, as you said, like, and we had some great chats, you and I, and you said to me, mate, how are you going? And we've all asked people that question or been asked that ourselves, and you say, yeah, I'm going all right. Yeah, I'm not like this, look. Or then, as you said, you go the other way and go, yeah, well, what do you want me to do about it? They sack me. What can I do now? Whereas there's still a lot of things you can do. Like, it's a phone call. Look, I'm looking for a bit of work, or even as I've done in the last couple of weeks myself, done a bit of volunteer work in areas I've never worked in before. A good mate of mine, I've been working at his dad's farm on and off for the last sort of 6 to 12 months. Now, if you had said to me that time I'd work on a farm with horses and whatever and using my hands, manual labour, never. But you know what? Another string to the bow, and not hard to do it.
I need to jump in there before Jack does. You're right. You changed the goalpost because manual labour, gardening, I didn't think it was your sweetest asset, mate. But the good part is acknowledging that and knowing this isn't me, but I'm going to have a crack because you know what? It's going to change me. It's going to change my mental state. Definitely change your physical state. And you know what? You've added another string to your bow, mate. So well done. Just acknowledging that. All right, Jack, we're going to talk just quickly, but I'm just going to open it to you. Just a little reflection comment there. And then we'll just have one last chat on staying positive after that.
Yeah. I mean, Glenn's doing it and has done it. And Alan was talking about it then, and I was thinking about this before the show in relation to losing jobs, losing relationships, and where is our energy best spent? Is our energy best spent in the past and holding grudges, blaming, or is our energy best spent being proactive? Of course, it's being proactive, and Glenn's doing it. Alan's already done it. And this, I think, is a great way to shift out of difficult times. Is that where are we spending our energy? Do we want to be wallowing all the time? Do we want to be sulking? Do we want to be ruminating? Do we want to be hard on ourselves? Do we want to be blaming? Do we want to be finding answers? Or do we want to be going to find the next question? Do we want to be going to find the next job or find the next relationship and find the next thing that's going to make us happy rather than looking back at the stuff that's making us unhappy? So I think it's a really great way that Glenn's done it and doing it. And Alan, the way you mentioned it then is like, yeah. And the way I frame it, like we're all saying the same thing, but we're saying it differently. Like, I'm like, where do we want to spend our energy? And big believer, and Alan and Glenn are doing it. It's about being proactive and looking forward. There's obviously a time and a place to learn from mistakes, and there's a time and a place to sit with some sadness and sit in the mud and maybe learn from these feelings and learn to sit with them and be with them and know what they feel like, but shouldn't be our go-to mode, and it shouldn't be our go-to mindset. We want to be a growth mindset rather than a negative mindset. So, yeah, I love what the guys are saying. Really, really love it.
Does that mean we're gurus now?
Yeah, I'm learning more from you than I have on many more of these other podcasts. This is great. It's just so refreshing that to hear it from other blokes, older blokes that have obviously done the work on themselves. Like, you can just hear that you've had to go through some shit times, and you took that opportunity to to say, right, well, I don't like this version of myself anymore. I'm going to have to put the work in and find out who I actually want to be. What's the Alan? What's the Glenn? What's the Aaron and the Jack that I actually want to be moving forward? And I think it's fucking great. Like, it's like heartening to hear from me because I've done it and doing it. And like, it should be motivation for more people to say, right, if I'm not loving who love the behavior that I'm coming up with. And you both have mentioned it. You mentioned anger and being hot-headed. I was the same. Like, I'm just listening to you guys and thinking, yeah, that was me. That was me. And I'm sure there's other people out there that hopefully are listening to this and they can say, all right, shit, well, maybe I don't have to be this person all the time. And maybe this isn't my default operating system. And maybe I can change, because Alan and Glenn and me are living proof that you don't have to accept who you are if you're not enjoying how you're making yourself feeling and how you're making others feeling. Alan, you said it. You said you'd say stuff and it'd make you feel good for 2 minutes, but it'd sap the rest of everyone else. Make everyone else feel shit ass, but you'd feel shit ass 2 minutes later. Mate, I've been there and done that, and I hated it. And you obviously saw something in that. I saw something in that, and I'm like, nah, that's it. We're going to have to change this. And I'm a big believer that if you want to change, you can change, but you've got to put the hard work in, and you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can put anyone else's on. And that's the start. That's the start. And go and fix your own backyard, and then we can help each other properly.
It becomes so clear when you identify it like that, Jack, of exactly that, the oxygen mask theory. I see ourselves as big mosaics. Sometimes we can get smashed into big pieces, but now it's all about what picture do we want it to make up in the end. And that's a really important one for me. I've mentioned a few things tonight, but look, I want to just touch on a bit of positivity, and how do we find some positivity in some of those broken moments? Jack, is probably the last thing I want to really ask you. And then we'll touch on some kind of key takeaways that we've chatted about tonight. But positivity is one. How do you find yourself or being able to be positive in a negative space? What have you learnt in that space? Is it someone that's pulled you out of that, or is it self-acknowledgement? I tend to have this method and rule around this cloud mentality of watching the clouds come through on the sky. And that mentality, someone told me, was the clouds will come through and they'll pass. The point is, you got to acknowledge that those thoughts are like clouds and they will come through and they will pass. And there is light, they say, at the end of the tunnel, at the other end of the tunnel. What have you found, Jack? Is there any one kind of word or little thought process you can give us that to stay positive? How do you stay positive in today's environment?
You crushed it there with the coming and going, and like, I apply this to my thought. We can apply this to our thoughts, is that we can't control them. Controlling them's like catching fog. So don't bother, but let them come and go, and just remind yourself that they don't make up who you are. They're just thoughts. They're just thoughts. So don't let them dictate who you are. You get to take on board which ones you want to follow and which ones you have and acknowledge rather than ignore. You can have and acknowledge them and say, right, well, okay, that's a messed up thought, or that's a messed up mindset, or that's a messed up activity or situation or feeling. I'm going to try and steer away from that one and get back to where I need to be. There's an important difference, important thing that I want to mention is, like, that's acknowledgement, and that's important. If we can do that, we let them sit and let them evolve or evaporate. We don't want them shoved down. We don't want them ignored, because that's when it can come back and bite us. So yeah, I think you nailed it there, Aaron, with the clouds. But be easy on yourselves, on ourselves, and sometimes it's okay to be negative, but it's when we back to back those, that's when we've got to be better and a bit more resilient and find the things that find that person that we want to be and follow that again. That's where I would That's where that lies for me. It's okay to be negative sometimes. It's okay to be sad and be in these ruts, but we just can't follow that as the bouncing ball. We've got to be following the other one.
Great call. Great words of advice. Thanks, Jack. Just some last words from you, Lovey, and then Cuz, and then we're just going to touch on a couple of key takeaways.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Jack, I know you said I've done it and I'm doing it well. I think I'll be doing this the rest of my life, and that's good. That's okay for me. You know, I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I've done it. I think Hades will tell me when I'm done. That's fine.
Come back, Lovey. All right. Hopefully Lovey comes good in a second with the old internet, just when he was delivering us some gold. Cuz, we'll flick to you and then we'll hopefully go back to Lovey.
Look, still on Lovey's fund a bit. Like, I'm a bit of a work in progress too, and I think talking about broken relationships, lost and all that sort of stuff. Like, I spent last Sunday on the couch with my ex, for want of a better word, and I thought, if this is the new normal is not that bad. I can cope with this. So I've got the respect of her back, the respect of my son's back, and I thought, you know what, this is okay. And once I thought it was okay, that's amazing. Everything else is okay. So, yeah, so kind words from you, Jack, but I think, like Lovey, I'm a bit of a work in progress, and that's not a bad thing. I'm happy to deal with that going forward.
All right. Hopefully we can bring Lovey back on just to, we got halfway through that bit of gold, mate. So sorry about that. We're just going to bring you back on and finish this off.
Tell you what, the lack of Wi-Fi is infectious from Frankston and Mooroolbark, seriously. What a load of shit. No, it's just the only thing I was just going to say was embracing the shit. Embrace it and embrace the negative, because you know what? Once you get stronger at what you do, and once you're stronger in your own self and who you want to surround yourself with and how you and your methods around dealing with negative things, you can bring them on. You just wipe them off, because you know what? You've got the things you want to put in place, and you've got the network you're looking for, and you've got the self-belief all of a sudden as well. But at the same time, like I said earlier, the only thing I do there is just balance it. Don't get too excited with the fact that you've brushed off something negative and it's fantastic. Just keep yourself nice and level in life, and you know, then when the next negative thing that comes along, you stay just as balanced. I think for me, that's
there. It was just as balanced. Let's leave it at that with Lovey. But gee, that internet's struggling. You did jinx yourself, Lovey, telling us how good your internet was before. While the little things have come back to bite you. But I just want to touch on a couple of key takeaways. I've written down just a couple of words in amongst our conversations here, and the most important takeaway for me on this chat is a few things. One is listen. You'd be surprised who's listening in amongst that as well. And hopefully tonight, this little episode sits on the big wide world web, the information superhighway, they used to refer to it as. And you never know who comes across this and takes a key little takeaway out of this conversation at some stage and might resonate with them. To go back of exactly what we spoke about before. We're all human. We're just a work in progress. But underneath, we're pretty brittle. You can have a hard shell, but we're pretty brittle underneath. It can be knocked down like a house of cards pretty quickly. So there's a lot of analogies in there. But another one was be aware. I think acknowledgement in amongst that. Be aware of how you're feeling. I love the analogy that your psychologist spoke to you about, Glenn, is rating yourself. But don't be honest with yourself. Don't say you're an 8 when you're really a 5. Ironically, I ended up in hospital a little while ago, and they thought I was having another little issue with my heart, and they asked me for a pain rating. And for probably the first time in my life, I was actually a little bit more honest with how my pain rating was, and didn't over or underestimate, and tried to be a little bit more honest with actually how I was feeling. So there was hopefully a learning moment that I have in amongst this. But so the acknowledgement was another one. And I think the most important part I've gathered out tonight is be aware and celebrate those little wins, that they're not always a big thing and a big movement. But Lovey did touch on the fact that, you know, no highs, no lows, kind of keep it a little bit more balanced. I think you need to celebrate the wins a little bit and probably acknowledge the lows. And then, as I said, Lovey's right. If you can get a little bit more level, I think you're a better offering to a lot of people, including yourself. So they're the key kind of takeaways for tonight. Guys, this has been an amazing chat. Lovey, we're going to bring you back up. Wi-Fi. It hasn't been your best friend after you jinxed yourself tonight, but I really want to thank everyone that's jumped on this tonight. Cuz, for being so open and honest and raw with us tonight. It's not easy to sit there and tell everyone you're broken or you've been broken. And it's funny when you say to someone you've been broken, how raw that stirs back in your head, which just proves we're still a work in progress. And it's not all done. And Lovey's 100% right. Jack's perception was that in his comments of Lovey saying Lovey's done it, and in Alan's he has done it, absolute 100% that Jack would acknowledge that you know, we've all still got work to do, and we analyze each day and each week in its own. But I want to acknowledge it's cool to cry. It has been pretty cool to cry tonight, hasn't it, Cuz? It's been one of those emotive nights. This will go down as one of my favorite discussions and podcasts that we've kicked off tonight. It's a pretty powerful episode 150, which is episode kind of 1 in amongst our mental health discussions. I look forward to adding a bit of a playlist in our YouTube channel that we'll discover as mental health. So it will be something that we refer back to over time and refer people to. But I do want to acknowledge that we're not perfect. We don't claim to be. We're just 4 genuine, honest guys, and everyone that's jumped on this chat. Berkey, you sum it up beautifully. You are a 10, but you feel like a 5. Beg to differ in that respect, but I appreciate Darren Cummings. You've been epic, mate, on this. I know you're not one that wants to jump in front of the camera like we don't, but I guarantee you by the end of these mental health conversations, you are going to be on this show talking about an experience you've had in amongst your life. You're too good a mate to me and so many other people not to be involved in this show. But I just want to acknowledge that if you really are struggling, I don't mean to be roll out the line that gets rolled out of, if you are struggling and really struggling, you do need to not go and get help. And sadly, Lifeline is a conversation that you may want to pick up the phone at some point if you are really struggling and have a chat to. I'm open enough to say that I've done that. And I know you have too, Cuz. It's not an easy conversation. It's not an easy dial. But you do learn from it, and you are a better person for having these conversations. So, boys, I really want to thank you for all jumping on board. Jack, it's cool to cry. Here I am, half tearing up, but it's a great moment. It's cooltocry.com. Please do yourself a favor, jump on.
Get
Most
a t-shirt.
importantly, try and buy a t-shirt
yeah.
and do a t-shirt. You don't have to wear it. You can put it in the cupboard like Jack mentioned. I'd love to see you gift it to someone and they ask you, what's the deal with this t-shirt? Because someone has asked me, is it really cool to cry? And that sparked the conversation. And that was, we're changing the stigma around men's mental health, especially, but mental health in general. So, boys, thanks for joining me on episode 150. 3 integral people in our journey going forward on this show. So thank you for jumping on. I know you guys don't get to jump on every show that I have, but it's really special when you do, and we talk about life and we talk about generally things that are happening in our lives. So thanks again. You're welcome anytime, Jack. As I mentioned, we will discover plenty of topics in amongst this, and we won't always have you on as a esteemed conversation in amongst in respect of guru. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. What you are is one of us in this space, and you're a piece of the puzzle. So I call ourselves the 4 cornerstones of this jigsaw puzzle that we're going to create, and people are going to come on and form part of this in amongst our chat. So thanks to everyone for tonight.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Az. Again, mate.
No problem. Have a good week, everyone. Get out there. And I just really want you to think about picking up the phone to someone and having a chat tomorrow. Jack and I think, having a conversation about this last time, that he actually went and did that. And you'd be surprised who you pick the phone up to. Who's that first person you're going to dial? Sometimes can be a confronting conversation. But Darren Cummings is 100% right. Maybe sometimes it's you and you actually just need to talk to someone. So don't send an SMS, don't message someone or send them an email. Pick up the phone, hear that voicemail the first time, because they guarantee you they don't answer. And that's what people do these days. They wait for the voicemail. But put a voicemail and just say, look, mate, I just want to have a chat with you. And you find out who's listening when they pick up the phone and want to have a chat. So it's a great moment. Go get out there and do it. Thanks, boys. See you soon.
Thanks, guys. Beautiful.
See you, James.
That was a special one. Thanks for joining me on episode 150 of So What's Been Happening. I have to sit back and reflect on this one for a little while, because there was so much we covered. There was a lot of gold in there, so we're going to take that away for another day and talk a little bit more about mental health in the next couple of months. But we're going to call it Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month. For some, it's Melbourne Cup coming up, first Tuesday of November. But for us, it's going to be the first Tuesday is going to be Mental Health Tuesday. So we'll have to give it a name at some point. Maybe Dave Cosmer, he can give us a jingle. Who knows? We'll shout out to someone to maybe if they can make this happen for us. But thanks for joining me on episode 150. I'll see you for the next 150.